So I'm Alan Failde. I'm a vice president of marketing at Wizards of the Coast. And joining me here on stage is Michelle Sutterfield. She leads all of our influencer relations types of efforts. Between us, we have a pretty diverse background in gaming. Myself, I've worked on kind of different franchises, different platforms. So I've worked at Activision Blizzard on Hearthstone most recently, and then before that on Destiny and Call of Duty. Also worked in San Francisco here for a little while at a company called Pocket Gems. And Michelle has a ton of experience in kind of working with influencers and helping them kind of build themselves up as businesses and brands. And so for the talk today, we're going to talk a little bit about Wizards history and a little bit about the company and how that history has applied itself to what we're doing in digital today. And the hardest thing about these talks is, there's so many different people here and different companies. We really spent time thinking about who do we think this talk is for and the lessons we're kind of sharing with everybody. And there's really two audiences. I think one is small and medium-sized game developers and publishers. You probably have a community or influencer program and you're looking for new ideas or ways to be creative with it. So hopefully our talk will help inspire you. And then the other one is you might be an influencer who's up and coming, who's trying to figure out how to break out. I think Michelle will share some advice at the end for people who kind of fit that profile. And so I have this unduly task of boiling down 25 years of company history into like a slide and a half to kind of help you understand what we're about. And so when I was debating on how to explain this, I thought of baking cakes, because I figured everybody likes cakes unless you're an evil person. And so, personally, I love tres leches, if there's any tres leches fans out there. And so the cake you see up there is actually our 25th birthday cake from last summer. I believe Cake Boss or someone associated with Cake Boss baked that for us. So if you were baking a cake and that cake is Wizards of the Coast, what are the key ingredients that you would put in that cake? And so to put it simply, there's kind of three that I want to share today. One is that from the beginning, we've been about community and fellowship. We've been all about bringing people together over a shared love of gaming. Historically speaking, our most famous products have quite physically brought people around tables to enjoy a game or play a game. So that's been with us. That's been in our DNA since the very beginning. Another piece is we are huge, fans of fantasy. So whether it's deep storytelling, world building, deep and rich characters, we're huge fans of fantasy, and that's in our DNA. And then the last piece is strategy. I think everybody here, especially if you're a game dev, you understand that the stickiest games are the games that are pretty easy to pick up, but are really difficult to master. And so for us, we love these deep experiences in games. And if you've had a chance to play Magic the Gathering, I think you'll understand what I mean. And so how do I explain to people what we do when I go to a dinner party? Well, we're the company that owns and publishes Dungeons & Dragons. We're also the company that owns and publishes Magic the Gathering, the strategy CCG game. And about a year ago, we did something that was very different for our company, which is we in-house developed what we consider a very high-quality digital version of our Magic the Gathering game, and we called it Magic the Gathering Arena. It's in open beta today, and it's free to download if you want to check it out. A lot of the things we're going to be discussing in this talk have to do with some of the innovations we've been doing over the past year, kind of really fine-tuning our marketing for Magic the Gathering Arena for reference. So let's talk a little bit about Magic the Gathering's history. This is it's a game that's been around 25 years, so this is a very abridged version of our history, just to help set up some context. So where we started, from the very beginning, local game shops were incredibly important to us and our success. So these shops are where people come together to not just buy the product, but they come together to actually experience it and play and make new friends. The other thing that's really interesting about our history is that from the very beginning, we had sort of a homebrew culture develop among our players. So people would take the game that we created and then would go and create their own rules or variations. We often refer to that as their own formats. So this homebrew has been around in the PC world for a long time, and even now, there's modding cultures. And so we, with our physical card game, saw that very early on. So that was the beginning. As the company continued to grow and it was more successful, I think the company did something really, really smart, which is it really listened to players and watched players and tried to understand, hey, where can we invest as a company, or where can we insert ourselves to kind of make the play experience better? And from that was born things like professional play and tournaments. If you look back at the history of Magic, our first Magic the Gathering World Championship actually aired on ESPN in the 90s. And so I know there's a lot of investment and things happening with esports today. So it's really neat to look back and see our history in the 90s and what we were doing back then. The other piece is that we ourselves are players and gamers, and so we invested in programs that I think we just saw in sort of the play patterns and behaviors. And a very kind of famous one is what we call Friday Night Magic, which is this formal program where if you go to a local game shop on a Friday night, you can go and either learn how to play Magic or play with others. And then the last piece is that as the company continued to grow and the success of the product grew, anytime there was a new technology or a new social media platform, let's say Facebook, or even before that, MySpace, you would find Magic the Gathering communities kind of blossom. So that was a really interesting thing for the company to kind of experience and live through, having been around for so many years. So where are we going? So having kind of a new digital game that we're investing in and building, it opens up new avenues. And so one of those avenues is that we're able to work with a much broader spectrum of influencers, and we're going to show a lot about that later in this presentation. The other piece is esports. We recently made a pretty big announcement. We have a $10 million prize pool for competitive Magic the Gathering play, which I believe now makes us one of the top, esports in the industry. And then the last piece is we are also doing a lot of kind of interesting things around community programming. The screenshot is actually a calendar of just, I think it was like a few weeks ago. And so we're doing a lot of interesting things of how we program for that community. But let's take a minute and let's talk about game shops. So I mentioned how from the very beginning and even and through today, game shops have been super important to our success. So if you stop for a second and think about the local game shop from the lens of a marketing person, such as myself, and start to kind of understand, okay, what do game shops bring to the local players? Let's just go down the list, right? So my family in Houston, they within a couple of miles of their house, they have 2 different game shops. One has, I think it's like 10 to 15 gameplay tables. The other one's much tighter, much smaller, has I think around 2 game tables. So they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. The other thing that you'll understand about game shops when you visit them is that they each have their own kind of personality, their own culture. It often comes from owners and the staff that work there. They oftentimes serve as social hubs for a local community of gamers. So if you go to Friday Night Magic or you go to D&D sessions at local game shops, if you're a regular kind of player there, you'll start to see a lot of the same people, and you'll likely end up making brand new friends, which is really neat. The last piece is they offer a variety of programming for everybody. If you've never played D&D, if you've never played Magic, you can find your spot at a local game shop. And then the last piece is that they're a great place to kind of check out new games. So maybe there's a new board game or a new card game that's released. Oftentimes that could be your first stop to kind of understand from tastemakers, what that game is like. So if you take a step back and look at game shops from a marketing lens, they should start to sound very familiar, because they do to us, which is they start to sound a lot like a modern influencer, right? It's just influencers oftentimes work on a much different scale and obviously a different platform. So I think it shouldn't be much of a stretch to understand that what we've experienced in our history working with game shops and sort of the physical analog world, there's a lot of things that kind of cross over into the digital world. And I think amongst those things is that oftentimes the things that make game shops successful also make modern day influencers very successful, right? So having a variety of having programming for all skill levels, even the way we treat our partners in game shops and our partners that are influencers, I think is the same. I mean, if an influencer succeeds streaming your game, you succeed. And if a game shop succeeds, our games succeed. And then the last piece is this sense of homebrew culture. I think that from the very beginning, we've learned to kind of learn from our players that our players are very, homebrew, I think, is just an easy way to say, players are creative. And so I think we've also brought this homebrew culture with us into the digital world, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So what happens, what happens when you listen to the community, you put influencer relationships first? Well, a lot of really fun ideas happen. The screenshot that you're seeing up here, and we'll go in more detail in just a second, is an in-game event where we paired up Day9, who is one of our most famous Magic the Gathering influencers, with Danny Trejo, who hopefully some of you in this room recognize. And they did what's called a singleton weekend over Valentine's Day. So hopefully, we thought we were being clever. Hopefully you guys understood singleton and Valentine's Day. But let me show a quick trailer before Michelle comes up and goes way more into detail on our influencer program. And I think, is the audio good?
Yeah, it should be.
All right, let's show a quick trailer about it.
Wow, Frito.
So, this Magic the Gathering Arena Valentine's Day event, it's called Singleton. Because you play single copies of cards, not because it's suggesting a date or anything.
Oh, would you look at all these soups? Oh, minestrone.
Singleton? We're having a 4-day special Valentine's Day event for Singleton? We chose the alternate card art that people could win?
Do you want to share something? That way we can order 2 entrees and both get some.
Well, whether you're with your significant other, your friends, or just with your fine self for this Valentine's Day, come join us for Singleton all weekend long.
Yeah, unless you play a rat colony.
Wait, what?
Rigatoni. I think I'll try the rigatoni. That sounds good. Now, which is the one with the curly noodles?
It's nice to see you out of the bathrobe, Danny.
This is my bathroom. No, bread is for winners.
All right. So the backstory behind that is we actually paired Danny and Day 9 up for, we did a trailer when we announced our open beta for Magic Arena. And it just shows you having really, what happens when you have great relationships with your creative community. In our brainstorming calls around what the premise of the video is, I think it was Day 9 himself that came up with the concept. Hey, wouldn't it be funny if Danny Trejo and I were roommates? Because like nobody would ever expect that. And so that created this whole cascading effect of creativity where we ask you to suspend your disbelief that Day 9 and Danny Trejo are roommates. So yes. And so all of this, before I toss it to Michelle, is we don't do this in vain. At the end of the day, we have a game that we want to be successful, and I think everyone here that works on a game would agree that for us, engagement and retention is the most important. If people aren't playing your game, you have nothing. And so for us, we see great results when it comes to player engagement with the influencer activities that we've done. And so we hope, you'll also partake in having fun with your influencer community. So now let me welcome Michelle up to the stage to kind of go more into detail on our program.
Thanks, Alan. Hello, everyone. You're a very lively crowd today. Like Alan said, I'm the influencer manager for Magic the Gathering Arena, and what a wild ride it's been in the past year already, and I'm so excited for what we have in the future. This is basically an overview of what I will be talking about today. How we want to work with our influencers is we want to make sure that our influencers are influencing our community, not just in the way that we want them to download and play our game, but actually how they interact with each other in real life at events or even online. So we want to make sure that we're choosing the right influencers to do that, and we are also building on those relationships. We keep those relationships ongoing through the special events and other features that we do for those streamers or other creators. And we invest in them. We hope that they invest in us back. And that's why it's important to work further than the relationship itself and work on those offerings. And then progression from that, you saw we had a streamer event, the Day 9 and Danny Trejo. We do that with other streamers as well. We work closely with them and our developers and create a basically homebrew format inside of MTG Arena centered around that streamer. It's a really great opportunity for ourselves and the streamer because it allows them to get amazing reach. I mean, that's Crip's face inside of our game. That's pretty amazing. But it also gives us some really great original content, not only for the streamer to play, but for the viewers to watch, and also for the players inside the game. This is something new that they get to experience. So what sort of influencers do I reach out to, and why do I reach out to them? We have a lot of amazing values as Wizards of the Coast. You can Google them right now. Some of those values include inclusivity, stewardship, empowerment. And we want to reflect that in our community. So when we look for influencers, we don't just look for the people that are bringing in the most views on Twitch, the people that are going to, have thousands of downloads of a game. Although those things are great and we still look for them, that's not our deciding factor. Our deciding factor is which influencers can we work with that will influence our community to be a better place and to be more involved? We look for passionate players, and not just passionate in the gameplay itself, but passionate with the brand and IP. And we also use a mix of our top tier creators, going back to numbers, and our micro and mid-tier influencers. And we found that when using a big bulk of these micro influencers, it brings so much more to our events and our numbers on Twitch than just using top tier alone. We also get more sincere creations from them and just great community involvement overall with the micro influencers. So we've seen a lot of success with this new way of thinking for Wizards of the Coast. We've really only been overhauling influencer work for about a year since the drop of the NDA for MTG Arena. And with that drop, we actually saw, you can see there, that number, our unique streamers grew year over year, 477%, through the relationships and the offerings that we have given these streamers and having them all work together. So going back to the streamer events that we do in game, here's two examples for you. We have Amy Zonian on top. She's probably one of our micro influencers reaching into mid-tier right now. And then we have Gabby Sparts, who was mid-tier, now reaching into top-tier influencer. Gabby Sparts, when she did her event, it was all about big monsters and getting them on the field. It was greedy. It was just a greedy draft, and we loved it so much. She actually doubled her average viewers because of that event alone. And not only did they come in for that event to watch her, they stayed. And she has actually told me in emails that that event alone has brought her to the next level for her streaming ability and being able to just have her own business as a streamer, which is really great for us to hear, because that's what we want to make sure is happening, right? We want to make sure that the offerings that we are giving streamers is an investment not only to us, but it's an investment to them. Then we see Amy Zonian. Amy Zonian is awesome. If you don't know her, she's a mechanical engineer. She actually used to work for Amazon, building robots, of all things. And she loves Magic the Gathering so much, she quit her job as a mechanical engineer at Amazon and now full-time streams MTG Arena. So she created this amazing draft and ended up being the top special event draft we've ever run inside the game. It was so successful that we ran it twice with her permission, and she was very excited when we did that, and of course, great for us, great for them. Now, working with all of these streamers, we said earlier, I work with like thousands of streamers, you know, and building those relationships is very important because we can get so much more out of just, you know, a sponsorship, pay here, do this here. We have our early access events, and if you watch the last one, Ravnica Allegiance, we had over 400 streamers be part of that event, and not a single one of them were paid. And they all wanted to do it because they love the game, they love the exclusivity, and they love the community. It's a huge event that they all get together. I make a Discord for them, and they just love talking with each other. It's just a fun time for them, right? And therefore, they will invest their time, even if it's a non-paid event. And, you know, hearing all of this philosophy of, you know, oh, the philosophy of if you help the streamers and they grow and it's really rewarding, it is really rewarding. Not only do we see, you know, Alias V, she came over from Gwent. She is now a full-time streamer for MTG Arena, but we see this type of conversation. I get it in emails, DMs, and just out on Twitter all of the time. This is not just oh, I scavenged through and found this from like a year ago. No, this is a very, very regular conversation that is in our community. And it's wonderful to see that because, you know, we talked about our community having 25 years and about the cake and, you know, all of these different ingredients. When we dropped the NDA and we started focusing on influencer work, not only are we growing the community at large, but we now created a new subset community, and that's our streaming and creator community. And I'm only one person. I work with a lot of streamers, And so when we build these relationships with them, they are now not only advocates for the brand, but they help me. I've had so many new streamers come to me because of referrals from other streamers, very top tier, influencers, referrals because of the way that we treat them. I've been in many conversations in the past, most recently, Tice, who's one of our competitors for the Mythic Invitational, if you know him, he's a pretty big deal on Twitch. I had a conversation with him the other week on the phone, and he mentioned to me that what we do at Wizards of the Coast for influencers is nothing like he's ever experienced before in other companies. And this is a top tier creator, so he's been working, he's had lots of sponsorships with other companies. And I asked him, oh, that's interesting, tell me more about that, because what I think I'm doing, building the relationship, putting values first, is not new. It's just correct, right? And so when I asked him about that, he said, yeah, most people don't care. And they just pay you, or they offer you something, and then they move on. You're putting the effort into building a relationship and making me feel comfortable in a new community. You're also offering me opportunities far beyond just monetary value. And that's something that is very original, it's refreshing, it's new, and I appreciate that. Again, not the only streamer, especially top tier creators, that has told me that. And if you're gonna take away anything from this talk, it's that you need to care more about your streamers. When you have happy streamers, you have those happy relationships, you will get so much more than you could ever imagine. So let's talk more about the advice. I have some advice for developers and for influencers. And a lot of this advice can actually go hand in hand because developers, they work for a company. Streamers, you should think of yourself as a company. You are your own personal brand, and you should be acting as if you are a business. So the first thing that you need to do for either developer or influencer side is recognize what are your company values. What is the values of your brand? What are the goals that you're trying to reach, right? As an influencer, think about what's your brand? What are the values that you hold? What are the goals that you're trying to reach? And hopefully, those two values, the values and the goals of both parties will align. And when those align, you will get the best product possible for both sides. Developers, again, don't just go in there and say, I want the top tiers, right? Invest in your micro influencers and mid tiers because they will grow with you. And not only will they grow with you, they will stay with you when they grow. And that's where you're gonna wanna be. You don't wanna lose someone because you didn't invest in that relationship when they break through. It has happened. It will happen. So invest in people. Micro-influencers will benefit the most from your support, that is true. But the top tier creators, when you start putting them together with micro-influencers, can also reap the benefits of that. So really encourage that community building, not only for the streamers themselves, because they'll start taking care of each other. They will. They'll start supporting each other far beyond what we can offer. We can only do so much with featuring streamers daily or the special events. There's a lot of things that happen in between that we can't always just be throwing out sponsorships and featuring them. But what's happening in between to help build that community, it's the streamers and the influencers themselves. When they start supporting each other with raids and hosts and you're really fostering that community to make it a very supportive, the stewardship value, right, environment, everyone starts growing together. And it's a really, not only just beautiful thing, but the data shows it works. I mean, we grew over 400% in 1 year of unique streamers, and it's really because of the community itself. So yeah, for streamers, if you don't get an opportunity that you were really hoping for, I'd say this though, don't get discouraged. Not every opportunity is for you, and that's okay. We only have certain spots for certain opportunities, or sometimes we have over 400 for a special event, right? I've gotten emails before of people saying, oh, you didn't use me for this event. Did I do something wrong? And it's, oh, no, on the contrary, we love you. We want to invest in you. This opportunity just wasn't for you, right? So you can't take things personally. You have to just keep going, keep doing what you are supposed to be doing, and build that relationship of positivity and the community around you, and you'll grow regardless as a streamer. So what's next for us? We are investing in esports, as Alan has said, and we have our Magic Pro League in play right now. And you can actually see our Magic Pro League with some of our fan favorites, influencers, and 8 players who qualified through the game. This next week in Boston, Massachusetts, we will have our Mythic Invitational, and it's going to be super exciting. I suggest you all tune in to twitch.tv/magic. There's going to be a $1 million prize pool on the line, and it's just going to be an amazing opportunity to see what we have in store for Magic esports moving forward, not only competitively, but also showcasing our amazing community of influencers who do reflect the community as a whole. And also, I think I should plug in that we're hiring. So please check out our job board online. We would love to get some resumes in and join our amazing team.
Great.
So.
We'll see everybody in the alcove.
Sorry?
We'll see everybody in the alcove.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, alcove. So if you have any, well, do we have any more time for questions here, or should we?
Like 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes if anyone has a question now. If not, we can end and we'll just go over to the alcove and have a casual talk over there. But if you do have a question, there's a microphone right there in the middle.